people compliance, that is. It's got to do with HR operations. Whereas HR strategy talks about things that make the organization capable, and has a strategy to do things better in the future and get ready for the future. And that strategy has to be in sync with the business strategy. So basically, whatever the business goals are, whatever the vision of the organization is, if that has to translate, it has to translate with and by the people of the organization. And therefore, HR strategy is very much important. And one of the aspects of HR strategy is performance management. And the performance management actually is a cycle. And this cycle starts from, again, business partnering, as I mentioned. And therefore, that means that the leadership vision has to be cascaded into certain expectation setting. So the business strategy could be 3 or 4 or 5 things that you want like to achieve. So, for example, the leader of the business uh, feels that we have to grow by 36% in the year, or it could be like we have to come out with cutting edge technology and be the first mover in a particular space. The business vision could be that we have to be the top 3 companies in India or in the world. It could be anything like this, or it also can be very specific, saying that we need to come out with electronic product or an EV machine, or we'll have to have 100 EV machines in India, so that all the new cars that are coming onto the road, actually we have the first mover advantage, so that the charging happens by our company. So this can be the vision statements of the leader. And as HR, it is important that we do get in sync with what this business vision statement is. It could be 3 prong, 4 prong, 5 prong, but for the year and for a 3 year period. And once you do that, you understand how that 3 year period is looking at for the first year. And that's where we start the performance management cycle. And here we have to ensure that the business leaders, business vertical leaders, are being given the right objectives to which cascade down further to the rest of the organization. So the leadership vision has broken into a setting expectation, has next moved on to cascading of that expectation in terms of goals to all the employees, and then further downward. So while people talk about OKR and bottom up approach and top down approach, organizations still feel very comfortable taking the top down approach. That means the leadership vision breaks down into objectives and then further gets cascaded downward in terms of goals. At this stage, a lot of people get confused. What is goal setting and what is task management? And we will cover that a little more after this, within this session. Okay. So now goals get then broken down into milestones, and milestones need to be milestones like, for example, suppose we have to reach 100, and I say that, okay, the first milestone is to reach 10, the second milestone is to reach 30, and then the fourth milestone is to reach 50. Another way to do it is I check the milestone every month, and another way to do it is I check the milestone every quarter. Okay, so the goals then get broken down into milestone, or also they are referred to as sub goals. Okay, and then what are work plans? So the third step of the performance management cycle is creating milestones out of the objectives that we received, and also make sure that we have work plans and there are check-ins. Now, while milestones are periodic, frequency determined within the goal or objective, a work plan is the method to achieve the goal. So the goals get broken into 2 different ways. One is that, okay, I'm going to be measured. This goal will be measured every month. This goal will be measured every quarter. Another goal is measured every half a year and reviewed, and there is a check-in at that time. Or it can also be broken down into methods to achieve the goal. For example, if my goal is to build a mobile app for this company, then the first thing that comes to my mind is I need to have a design of the mobile app, which is the first work plan. And the second is to build the front end of the mobile app. The third is build the back end of the mobile app. And the fourth is to test and have a UAT. And finally, the fifth work plan is to launch the mobile app. So I hope you understood that the goal can also be broken down into ways to achieve the goal or work plans that can be used to achieve the goal. So while the goal is broken down into frequency of review, which is milestone, it also can be broken down into methods to achieve the goal, which is the, and typically this work planning is bottom up. So the employee, for example, you are the manager, you've given goals to the employee needs to come back saying that these are the four things I would do, these are the four work plans I will have to achieve the goal that has been given to me. So typically that is, and that milestone check is called the check-in. And if the check-in is not done, this is the most crucial part of a manager's performance management capability. How well the check-in is done. Whether the check-in is done or not also. A lot of people do not do check-in. They're not comfortable having that conversation. But that's most important, to have the check-in at the time of the milestone. Okay. Now, we are going to go to the next process, which is the merit-based appraisal. So typically, the organization has an annual appraisal cycle. Some of them do have a semi-annual, half-yearly appraisal cycle. So the setting of the appraisal and how is it merit-based or not, all of this will be covered in our presentation. And finally, taking decision of talent that is there in the organization, which is nothing but the people in the organization. So what are we going to do with the people? Are we going to, after the appraisal process, are we going to look at people for increments? Which are those people we will recognize? Which are those people we will shortlist as the high pot or high potential candidates? Which are those people where their current job needs to be changed? Things like that. I'm going to move to the next slide, which is talking about setting expectations, which is the second part of the performance management cycle. So in the second part, you see that the goals or objectives have to be cascaded downward, and employees need to be looking at work planning to achieve these goals, and the check-in happens by the supervisor. At the time of check-in, it is important that the supervisor looks at the challenges that are faced by the employee and support that is required to be given to the employee. A lot of people ask, what has happened? How much have you done? What are you going to do? But it is also important to acknowledge the challenges that the employee has and the support that is required. And a good check-in will involve establishing the way forward till the next check-in, and also looking at the challenges and support that is required. The next is the interactive with supervisor. Ideally, while the check-ins are available, there could be an opportunity within the work plan to have a weekly discussion, interaction. So that either it could be a pre set weekly meeting, or it could be that you tell the employees that they need to send an update every week, or it could be even bi-weekly. IT companies typically choose that to be every 15 days, every 2 weeks, that is. And ready for assessment. So making sure that all of this data on check-ins, work planning, goals, move into the appraisal format. Every check-in, it has to be recorded in the appraisal format. So we'll move to the next part, and after that, I'll take some questions. Okay. So I'm now going further deep down into expectation setting, and we will talk about goal setting. So here is the most commonly used method. Obviously, it can be different from this, but if you want to have a rounded, a pretty decent goal setting thing so that it is very clear to the employee what is expected out of them, then you need to give a title to the goal, make sure that it's classified as a target is an alphanumeric target or a numeric target, have a weightage of this goal against all other goals put together. So for example, you have 4 goals that you're giving to an employee. What the employee is supposed to find which goal is going to have the highest weightage. For example, this goal may be 30%, another goal may having 20% weightage against the other goals. Okay, and goal type, financial goal type, it could be customer centric goal type. So you have to classify the goal so that it can be measurable in the future as to which, as an organization, as a unit, as an employee, which is the area that we are doing well and which is the area we are not doing well. Okay, and then the KPI, for example, it is nothing but the key performance indicator, what indicates performance and the target actually. So while this is done, setting the milestone or the small review before the appraisal is the sub goal frequency which we mentioned. And then when does this goal start and when does this goal end? So this is a very detailed uh, goal classification, and you could basically choose to have this in our organization. In our SaaS platform, we have this as, it's a print, it's actually a snapshot of that. We also have a customizable DIY kind of do it yourself kind of an appraisal, goal setting, where you could fill your own goal the way you want. You want only 4 columns, 5 columns, or 4 boxes or 5 boxes, or just you're not talking about goals at all. You're only talking about competencies like that. So that's a customizable one. But this is the most standard, most commonly used goal setting, uh, um, 7 box kind of a method. And also, while you set goals, it would be ideal for you to set competencies. And how do you do that? Actually, a lot of companies make this mistake that in our company there are 7 competencies required or 6 competencies required, but the mature ones have realized that the competencies are required by job roles. So, for example, a HR professional's competencies is expected to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and and what do you call a backend developer's competencies are expected to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and probably a machine operators competencies are expected to be another set of competencies. So, it is important that you classify the organization in not just departments but also in job families. So if you see on top, job family group, like tech job family, HR job family, some other family, and some other family, and you assign some competencies that are required for the people to display as a individual, and they know that this is what makes capability at a high level. So setting these competencies right in the beginning along with the goals would make a lot of sense so that they know what is expected from a capability standpoint too. So while all of this is done, it is like this is a snapshot of our SaaS product. So, but it is important whether you use the SaaS product or not. It is important that you get analytics in terms of, even though the appraisal is not done, every time the milestones were rated, you could actually get in your Excel itself, for all you know, the people who milestones were rated poor and intervene there, or try to coach them and understand what are the challenges. So it's important that you do not wait for the appraisal, but the milestone itself is that, for example, the goals that were rated by the supervisor, end of the month for some goals, end of the quarter for some goals, and at that time the milestones were rated, and it needs to be understood that which are those people who are struggling to achieve those particular goals even though the year is not done. Okay. Finally, the appraisal cycle, it will have to be product rating showcased. What is product rating showcased? It's nothing but the milestones that were done. For example, there is a goal with 4 milestones, that is quarterly, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. The the addition of all the 4 milestone ratings. So for example, there's 3, 4, 3, 3. The average of that will become the product rating for that particular goal. So this was rated in the first quarter, the goal. The goal was rated in the second quarter, that is the sub goal 2. The goal was rated in the third quarter, and the goal was rated in the fourth quarter at that period of time. End of the year, the appraisal form should have been automatically created with the goal name, with the weightage, and what is the average of the 4 ratings that were given to that goal by the supervisor and by the individual. Okay, so you're able to actually see the combination of those 4. But yeah, during the final appraisal, finalization of the appraisal, let the supervisor, before the finalization of appraisal, let the supervisor actually rate the employee's goal again, while the rating of the product is showcased. The average of the 4 months, 4 quarters was showcased. The final decision is still lies with the manager, saying that, okay, the 4 quarters average was 3 out of 5, but the manager would like to give 4 or 2. And then there's a reason that the manager should actually say why there's a difference between what he had rated or she had rated during the year, and why there is a difference during the end of the year. Okay. Then obviously there has to be a method of appraisal flow from the employee to the manager to the leadership, and then to the HR, and then to see a company head to finalize the appraisals. At this stage, again, it is completely up to you how you would like the appraisal form to flow. Whether it should flow from manager to manager's boss, or the entire hierarchy of the employee's cycle, or you would like it to only flow from employee to manager and then directly to HR. So that also is an important part, because sometimes appraisals take too long to complete if there are too many stakeholders that are rating. Second, the third or fourth rung may not be actually even aware about this individual, and they're basically sitting in the corporate house and not interacting with the last leg individual. So there is a very high chance that that person's input in the appraisal may not be adequate or may not be right. So that decision again falls on the HR to understand the organization and the capability of these people to rate an individual and do justice to that. At this stage, I'm going to stop and take some questions, as I mentioned, and then we'll again proceed further. And also, I would like to know if there is anybody who finds this to be going too fast, too slow, or not making sense at all. That's fine. Yeah. Let me just, can somebody call out, Ritika, can you actually pose these questions further? Yeah. Ashwin, yes. Yes, Ashwin.
Hey, hi, Yugandhar, Ashwini here. Yes, it's Ashwini.
Ashwini, yes, sorry. Yeah, Ashwini.
So I really liked the way it is created, the portal, and it seems to be very flexible and easier to operate. Um, uh, I have a couple of questions here. So on the first part of goal setting, when you display the slide, so that's very, very crystal. I really like the way that you created. But is it
Thank you.
accessible to download it in Excel format?
Yes, it is downloadable by Excel format, then filled and uploaded back into the system.
Oh, awesome, awesome. And another point is the second slide on competencies. So, is it customizable to add more if required?
Yes, it is possible. As I told you, there is a customizable performance management software also.
Okay.
So there are actually most of the organizations use
uh,
a standard procedure process or format
right,
called balanced scorecard.
correct.
And the 7 questions actually are in sync with the balanced scorecard. So basically, they have the goal type, which is supposed to be there in the balance scorecard, and the weightage that is supposed to be in the balance scorecard. So
Correct.
these are the two important aspects to make it a holistic review, apart from the name of the goal, obviously, or the objective. And basically also the start date and end date are important. So then there's
Right.
nothing much left. It's only the KPI and target, which are also
Correct.
supposed to be there. So that's typically the 7 questions that are there in the goal setting.
Okay.
Yeah. But
So
to have
that was
as
my
an
next
as a
question.
platform, we have built a highly customizable performance management software, which is the second part, which is the customizable one. And there
Correct.
you could design like having 10 columns or just 3 columns or 3 boxes and two boxes further down and things like that.
Mm-hmm. So one more adding to that point, speaking of this goal setting format, so I think we know that there are two types of roles in organization. One is on OKR role, another one could
Yes.
be a data metrics role. So this format will help us to adopt to any sort of role, right? Whether if it's a OKR, OKR set of people will have to fill up only in those particular fields, and the data metrics set of role people, they'll have to fill it in KPI, correct? That's how that we have created this,
Yes,
right?
yes. That's why the performance management customizable one is in place. While the most commonly used one is the balance scorecard method, which is just 6 things. And the OKR is more bottom up versus, I mean, I'm
Correct.
not saying OKR is actually that, but that's how it's been perceived in the market. The OKR is more bottom up. That means the employee actually thinks what are the things that are required for the employee to do well, and then it
Mm,
flows upward. And the other metrics is actually downward, which is bottom to top, the more traditional one, that is top to
mm,
bottom. Okay.
mhm,
So in our software, what we decided is that we would enable the employee to create the goal, and if
mm.
the employee creates the goal, then employee goal has to be approved by the superior.
Correct.
Okay. So there is, I mean, two ways to do it. One is that top to down. And the second
Mm,
way is getting the employee to actually create the goal. And then,
mm,
that creates more ownership in a way.
mhm,
And also enabling the employee to think what are the important things that and how they can contribute to the organization. And that's more like the OKR method. While
mhm,
while that is while that is the market norm, it is also
mm,
important to note that work planning, even though it is a top to down goal
mm,
cascading, work
mhm.
planning enables the employee to still think of what needs to be done to achieve something. Okay, and
Right.
therefore again ownership gets established. It's important that the employee owns a particular objective that has been given to the employee or created by the. That's the most
Got
important.
it.
So the ownership that is getting translated, I mean, downward to the employee, and
Mm,
the employee actually thinking of various methods to achieve the objective. And if the system that you have, whether it's a software system or not a software system, if there is a
mm,
process that is there where the employee showcases what are the
mm,
things that are going to be done to achieve the
mm,
objective one, another 4 things to be done to objective two, that is most ideal. However, while people have even subscribed to our software, created work
mm,
plans, not even 30% of the organizations are using the work planning option.
mm.
Okay, and that's unfortunate because I feel that a lot more structure, a lot more help challenges can be understood when we actually get into work plans as managers.
Got it. So that is bit flexible from the
Yeah.
247 HRM team on
Yes.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
With this one last point, on the third slide of milestone and check-ins pointers. So, does this have that reminder alert system when employees fail to look at on their progress? And does it go as an alarm or as an alert, say that you have this pending uh, work things.
So how it works is that the system automatically sends at the end of the sub goal or the milestone an email
Mm,
to the employee saying that
mm,
you're supposed to review yourself
mm,
on these two objectives or these two goals. Okay.
right.
And all of that goes and sits into the auto appraisal format.
Mm,
While I'm saying all of this, I think a lot of people must be thinking we are promoting our product here. I mean, the objective is to
mm,
talk about 247, no, sorry, talk about performance management cycle and making sure that we are very familiar with what the performance management
right.
process is.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not going to talk about my product alone. I'm going to talk about what the software that is available. And
Mm-hmm.
in the softwares that are available, I mean, not all softwares do have many of the features, but let's say in our product, what happens is the system automatically goes to the employee and the supervisor saying that a milestone needs to be reviewed now. So at this stage,
Mm,
please write what has been done in 2 lines
mm,
about this milestone and rate yourself on your performance for the milestone. That is quarter 1, rate yourself. That's it. So there'll be
mm,
a stars there. You click one of the stars for that objective and then a
mm.
small description box, both by the employee
Got
and the supervisor. I'll take some questions
it.
from Rutvij. Ashwini, great question. I'll
Thank
move
you.
on and we can come back again. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Rutvij, can you?
sure. Hi, Yugandhar. Thanks a lot.
Uh,
I think it was very useful so far as well, and I especially loved how you've incorporated the dashboard. The feel and look and feel is very engaging. So I love that. So our platform of choice is Workday, and very similar
okay.
in terms of the approach that you said, right? So completely
Okay.
aligned there. Just had one question, and this is something which is a grouse with most of the HR tech platforms that I have engaged with, including SAP and Oracle as well, right? So
Yeah.
if you look at in any large organization, you've got 3 layers of competencies or skills. I'm using them interchangeably for now,
Sure.
where at the very overarching level, you've got the behavioral competencies, which
Yes.
are applicable to everyone across the organization, agnostic of the role or tenure or seniority. And then
Mm.
at the between them, you have got functional skills, which I feel is what you were referring to, right? Where you
Yeah,
tag
it is
them
a
to job family
combination of
groups.
functional and behavioral. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, combination of those two. And then the bottommost, when you deep dive, are the technical skills, which I feel are
Yes.
more business led,
Yes.
role led, which HR typically doesn't get too involved in terms of
Mm.
tracking as well.
Mm.
So, is there a way where you can differentiate these three? Because if you use them as a
Yes.
combination, sometimes what happens is, depending on the subjectivity of the manager, the focus is either too much leveraged on the behavioral side, or there is no focus on the behavioral side. So, is there a way which you suggest
Yes.
in your experience that you can incorporate all three?
So the way it is done, and I don't know about the other softwares. I'm only going to talk about what I'm familiar with. Okay.
Sure.
So in the competency setting, there is a setting, right? You set there. There are three. Actually, there are two in our case. The functional and skills, which we spoke about, technical skills,
Mm-hmm.
is like combined, and the behavioral is the separate one. Obviously, we can combine, we can break it further into 3 or 4, like how
Got
you
it.
mentioned. So the functional and technical is like a combination, and the behavioral is one. So you click on behavioral and choose the 3 behaviors that are common to the entire organization. But
Mm-hmm.
there may be a behavior also very important for a particular function. And therefore, the functional part, which is typically to us technical, plus maybe
Right.
1 or 2 unique behaviors that have to be displayed by that particular employee in a function. Okay. And therefore, we
Mm.
classified this as job role and job family and not department. Because sometimes there are project managers in a particular department and there are project managers in another department. There may be sales
Right.
guys and there may be surgeons in cardiology. There may be department and there may be surgeons in I'll give you more apt one. There may be nurses within a department and there may be nurses in another department, right? So therefore, a job role like a nurse is supposed to show certain capabilities, that is skills, show certain behavioral competencies like empathy, like discipline, like and at the same time, certain functional capability like filling up a particular process note or checklist and making sure that it goes to the cardiology department. So there is that nurse needs to have technical skills, which are actually, the nursing skills, need to have behavioral skills, which come from the organization, and one or two functional skills, which pertain to, especially to the cardiology department, and one or two functional skills, which is specially related to another department. So therefore, the competencies are broken into two at our level, and then these two are filled by the the head of the department. Okay. So the competencies, and therefore that goes into the appraisal form. If you saw here earlier in the slide, you will see that the competencies list was grouped into job families. So that particular job family head will basically create the competencies that are required, and it's a combination of behavioral skills and functional behavior. Functional skills.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that was useful. Thanks. And I have a question.
And also another part I would like to mention before I take that in, is that you have various methods to arrive at the deficiency of a person. So typically, there is a particular nurse who has to have 3 rating as a minimum for a particular competency, but a surgeon is expected to have 4.
Correct. So
rating
further
in the same
proficiency
competency.
levels within each of those skills.
Yeah. So within each of the job families, there is a particular, so nurses is a job family, doctors is a family, surgeon is a family, accountant is a family. So each of these people, and then basically the expectation of, while the behavioral competencies remain the same, common to all the entire organization, nurses are expected to have for a particular one 3, doctor is supposed to have 4, and surgeon. So there is the competencies which are common and non-common and unique as well. And when the rating actually happens, a 3 rating need not be good for somebody versus for a particular job family versus another job family. Okay, so there is a expected level of competency and the actual level of competency, and then there is either a deficiency, and that is the area where you're in your check-in, you're able to call out that there is a deficiency in empathy, for example. There is a deficiency in filling out the checklist, for example. So that is the way to assess your competencies. Yeah, I think, Rutuj, if you have further questions, happy to take them.
Sure. No, thanks, Yugandhar. That was good. I had another follow-up question, and this is basically more towards the end of the process, right? So as an outcome of the performance exercise, typically you have 2 things, right? One is the talent strategy or the succession planning, which you said, who are the critical talent?
We'll come to that, yeah.
Okay, then I'll park my question for now, and I'll raise that at the end of the session. Thanks for this, yeah.
Thank you so much, Rutuj. We'll, in the interest of time, we will go ahead. Shubha, is that fine?
Yeah, it's fine. Actually, I had put in the text asking them to ask the questions directly, but now I think they can type it on the chat as well. Probably you can address it together.
Take a break every 25 minutes or so, and then
take
probably 2 more rounds of questions.
Yes, sir. Yeah, Yugandhar. Yeah, small question from my side. Arunagiri, sir.
Yes, Arunagiri. Yeah.
Yes. So this the goals, sir, how it is being evaluated? Is it based on the qualitative or quantitative? Is there any backend data is required to evaluate the goal?
So typically how it works is that backend data is required to evaluate a goal, but not every time backend data is available. Okay. So at times when a goal is being set, obviously there is historical data only available, but and after the goal is set, the data that is getting populated may not be sufficient. And at times the data that is available is not palpable or not in a good format. So therefore what happens is, while this data can be filled out in a sheet, okay, or extracted out of system, not all organizations have that capability of having data readily available, and therefore performance management softwares actually do not speak with a third party software which has data of performance daily. while that is being said, it can be explored. Okay. It is not necessary that it's not explored. But within the performance management software and the performance management cycle, it is more to do with vision translating into expectations, expectation translating into understanding challenges, supporting the individual, and then translating into a holistic appraisal, and then translating into what Ritwik said, talent decisioning, which is whether there's something to do like succession planning, like recognition, like what do you call career progression and things like that. Okay, so we'll get there. But yes, if data is available, great. That data has to be utilized either through software or outside the software to actually rate the individual's performance. I hope.
Yeah, it's typically it's a feedback system, right?
The feedback system is also there in the appraisal. For example, if you see on the top right side, there is something called as feedback here. So in this performance appraisal cycle, it will be very clear that it is going to be assessed on goals and competencies, or objectives and competencies. Even the OKR process, which is also a performance management software process, it is objectives and key results. So key result is the target and objective is the goal. Okay. So basically, even there, feedback is only to be captured within the appraisal at the end of the year. And one more, feedback within the year at the time of check-in. But here in the performance management cycle, the feedback is only given by the supervisor. When we talk about 360-degree feedback, it is not part of this process. The 360-degree feedback can be initiated. Like a product like ours has a 360-degree feedback module as well. In that case, what happens is the employee gets feedback from again, depending on how that needs to be customized, or in the setting, how the setting is set. Whether it should come, the feedback should be taken by supervisor, junior, peer, and customer, or it should be from a vendor. So things like that. So in our software, for example, you have the opportunity to take a third party, a vendor, a customer, superior, juniors, and it automatically even chooses the superior juniors also. And then it basically sends out the feedback form to them and takes the feedback all together, then gives a scoring card to the individual to know what is the perception on key attributes that different sets of people have about me. This perception can be worked upon, but that actually does not come under the performance management cycle. So I hope that is clear now.
So this assessment is purely is qualitative, right?
Yeah, the goal assessment is qualitative. Okay. I mean, while I'm saying qualitative, quantitative is part of it. And the competencies assessment, unfortunately, has to be, it has to be, may not be qualitative enough. It can be qualitative. It also can be it's like a feedback that the supervisor and the supervisor's boss have to the organization, saying that these are the particular skills that you have demonstrated. These are particular the behaviors that are demonstrated. What happens is there is a column in the competencies assessment form which talks about, can you talk about 2 or 3 areas that you have demonstrated this quality? While I'm not a big fan of that, softwares do give that, because just because you have demonstrated a particular quality once does not mean that it has been shown or demonstrated at all points of time. So therefore, by just mentioning one instance and scenario where it was demonstrated, we may not do justice to the overall rating. Again, while that is there, the goals have to be qualitative. It has to be as objective as possible, as clear as possible, and it has to have data backing it as much as possible. Okay. Should we go ahead?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Yugandhar.
Thank you.
Thanks for the explanation.
Okay. So just a second. got frozen. Just a minute, please. I'll join back because I think
Yeah, I think,
got
yeah.
frozen.
Or you can probably reshare it or something, no?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Is it a Mac?
Yeah, it is.
That's why Mac has this problem.
Yeah, thank you. So if you talk about competencies assessment, before this, so I'm going to talk about the fact that it is like this. It need not be exactly like this, and this has to be part of the appraisal form, and not necessary that these are the exact skills. So this is a particular job role, and these are the behavioral skills and competence, functional skills that they have asked for, and this is how the rating actually happens. So there is an opportunity for you to actually have an expected rating and the actual rating, and the different deficiency will show up as a result in a report. Okay, and we'll move further ahead. I don't know why I'm not able to. It was working well. Till now. I'll move to the next slide and again present.
Okay. Meanwhile, Pawan had typed something saying, setting expectation, what was the last 2 points? Probably you'll take it up later, no?
Yeah, we can take that up later.
Okay.
We can show it and then go back.
Mm-mm. Okay.
Pawan, this is for you. If you can see this.
We can't
So
see
why
your
take-
screen.
Oh yeah, I've not
Yeah.
shared. Is the screen visible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so Pawan, this is for you. So you have the last one, interactive with the supervisor, which is a pre-scheduled interactive, and then all of this getting ready for the appraisal. So what is necessary is that all of this detail, if you're using a software like us, okay, great. If you're not, but all of this should be available for the appraisal. Otherwise, there are two big things that happen. The impact of the recency effect, which means that typically managers tend to look at what happened in the last 2 months before the appraisal and give the decision of the rating at the time of appraisal. And the second thing is, if that data is not available, then it is not having enough content to justify the rating that has been given, and to also talk about all the problems that were solved or not solved, and they would be forgotten. So therefore, ready for assessment means the goals, the work plans, the check-ins, the interactives, all have to automatically come into the appraisal form. That's what we do. I mean, that's the ideal way. Okay, so I'm moving to the next one.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. In the interest of time, we're just going to move a little quicker. Okay, so at the time of appraisal, for example, if you see here, you have the employees, the supervisor has this, the employees are on the left-hand side of the screen, and you're able to see that there is a goal, there's some weightage, and the duration that is left, status. And there's also a filter which shows supervisor intervention, work plans pending. This is very important for you to have a intervention available. So that means, for example, I am, as an individual, I'm not able to achieve a particular goal, or I have hit a roadblock, or it seems like there's going to be a delay. Ideally, there has to be a method for the employee to call out that through an intervention required button. So we have an intervention required kind of button within a work plan, which says that, okay, this work plan may hit a roadblock because of the particular reason, and this is the help I need. So that intervention, whether you have a software or not, is necessary, that they are aware that we can intervene when you need us to intervene, kind of a thing. Okay, I'm moving to the next one, and I spoke about the competencies already for Rutvij, and we're going to move to the next part, which Rutvij was hinting towards, which is the talent administration or management. Now, it's also got very famous because of success factors. For people who are familiar with it, it's also there. It has been called out as talent review and planning. We call it the talent analysis. So various people do, and some people call it the 9-box, very, reduced to 9-box. So the talent management has certain aspects that have to be viewed, understood, and decisioned upon. So employee has a particular performance that has been displayed in the last 6 months. Employee has a potential to do some things or some certain aspects in the next 6 months. And the employee, because of the past, appears to be fit for the current role, or does not fit the current role but fits another role. Therefore, job fitment analysis. Career progression or career management basically talks about whether this person needs to be given a promotion or enhancement or more people, more responsibilities, things like that. Development needs. The employee has 1 or 2 or 3 development needs, and that has to be understood in the talent analysis. And finally, attrition management, whether this employee advocates well about the company and is loyal to the company. So these are the aspects that actually make a talent either important or not important. I'm sorry, I'm using these words, important or not important, because if you have found an individual not suitable for the organization in the years to come, then you basically are going to weed out the employee. Okay, and it could be in different ways, but I'm making it very I'm reducing this to like a very simple process, but actually it's not that. After these 6 areas are understood, then employee advancement, progression in the company, and what needs to be done that so that this employee features in the next career progression cycle, what needs to be done now. That is the decision that comes out of the talent analysis platform. Okay. So I'm now going into the 9-box, and we'll take questions. I know that there are a lot of questions that are going to come after this, but I think it is important that we cover these 2-3 slides and then take those questions. Okay. So the 9-box is the most famous one used before promotions are done. Okay. But I think we should do it for various reasons, and I'm sure the organizations take it seriously, but in some organizations, I see it getting reduced to only promotions or putting people on PIP, performance improvement plan. Okay. So let's look at this once and understand what is the 9-box. So you have 2 axes, one the potential and one the performance. And at the end of the year, after the appraisal is done, ideally the 9-box measurement should be done. So the performance of the employee comes from the appraisal. Also, the potential of the employee comes from the appraisal competencies. So the goals-based assessment comes into performance, and the competency-based assessment goes into potential. Is this clear? I hope this is clear. Okay. Now, what is performance? What is potential? Let me repeat myself. Typically, performance is achieving objectives against objectives set and expectations set over the last 6 months to 1 year. And what is potential? Typically, potential is whether this person can do more in the next 6 months, or can take more responsibility in the next 6 months, or displays or demonstrates capability to, to innovate or things like that. Any of these things or a combination of things will mean this person has higher potential than what is currently there. Okay. Potential of performance, by the way. Okay. So let's say high potential, high performer is a star. Some of them change these labels. It doesn't matter, but it's understood that what is a solid performer? A person who performs at very high level, but does not, but does not basically have the potential to do anything beyond the objectives. Okay. For example, cannot be a great coach, does not have the capability to do a different job, does not have the capability to do something else. So what is the important part for a solid performer? The career, the person next development is to actually acquire skills or behaviors to become the high performer. That means the potential of the individual to do more in a more holistic manner, that opportunity needs to be given to this individual, and there needs to be some training that has to be, coaching that needs to be done to this individual. Okay. Typically, and not necessary always, people who are potential gem, okay, not necessary that they will become stars, because they may have potential, but they may not have the quality to do hard work or to coordinate with others and lead others to get the work done. So what is that as HR managers and business leaders that we need to do? A potential jump, that the person who has high potential needs to be directed to or helped to make people do the work, and given some what do you call hard work, some making it into practical, and getting them onto the field, getting them to interact more, network more. These are the things that can actually translate a person from moving from potential gem to high potential. So the person has high potential, but not necessary that it is a star, because the performance, that means the targets have not been met. So if a person has such high potential, why does the person not achieve the targets? That is because either has not put all the hard work that is required, or has not been able to coordinate very well, or has not been able to utilize the potential or the knowledge the person has into actual work that is required for the target to be achieved. I hope now you are able to understand each of these categories within the 9-box strategy. But actually, there are 2 9 boxes that are there, not necessary that 1 box. So while I come to the second 9 box, I'm going into the second part, which is showing you how people will get plotted within graphs. And you also need to know, as an organization, as a unit, whether there are enough people with high potential, enough stars, enough high potential. If you see this graph, it looks like we do not have high potential candidates in this at all. Okay. We don't have the gems and we don't have the high potential candidates. So it is a matter of concern. Okay. For the future of the company. So we'll move to the next 9 box, which is nothing but the probability of attrition and impact if that attrition takes place. Actually, both these 9 boxes are extremely important for actually making a talent decision. And a person can, maybe 2-3 decisions can be taken against each individual at the end of the year. Now, why is it important that the probability of leaving the company and impact of if the person leaves is important? We need to understand that people not necessarily have a impact in the job they're doing. Sometimes what happens is that we realize through this exercise that a position can be questioned because it doesn't have any impact at all. In the end of this exercise, we may also come across to understand that there are people who feel, the leadership or the unit managers feel that everybody is a high impactful person, which again is a requirement for you to have a coaching with them or have a session with them, saying that what is impact, what is high impact, and what is low impact. So that is important. So people should not think that everybody is doing important work and high impactful jobs. So that expectation setting is also necessary to be done through a training or through a town hall or through an individual session. Okay. Now, probability of leaving a company is typically understood from the supervisor or peer, where this employee would have mentioned that I think I'm going to leave the company, or has not done well and has been complaining, or is very uncomfortable with the supervisor. These are aspects that need to be understood so that you actually, and therefore these check-ins also work very well for understanding the probability of leaving the company. Impact obviously is necessary to be judged by the supervisor and the unit manager. Okay, so these 2 9 boxes are very important to make decisions. So for example, our software actually makes those decisions in the using the 9 boxes. So for example, it tells you, it gives you that this employee needs to be looked at for career progression and recognition. This employee needs to have a succession plan immediately. This employee, because high probability to leave the company, high impact. Okay, so therefore there is a they need to have a succession plan immediately. You also have to have a retention plan for this employee, but they are not necessary that everybody needs to have a retention plan, because or everybody needs to have a succession plan. If it's a low impact, high probability, probably you do not need a succession plan at all. You may need to question the position whether this high probability, this low impact kind of a job can be clubbed with another job. So all of these boxes also make a lot of sense. The second thing is that both the jobs boxes together and the development need analysis that comes out of the talent review and planning or talent analysis is very, very essential after the appraisal is done, immediately after the appraisal done, for you to plan what needs to be done with the talent of the organization for the next 6 to 12 months. What are the initiatives you will take? Okay. It can also be putting people on PIP. For example, low performer, low potential is a no-brainer. It has to get onto a PIP saying that within 3 months, you either display us that you are really up to learning and delivering and really going to do 3 projects and deliver that numbers. If that you move to the PIP into actual, back to the regular stream, or you exit out of the company or you extend the PIP. Okay. And finally, insights of the appraisal have to be understood. Since we completed the talent review, 9-box planning and what needs to be decisions to be taken, I'm going to stop and then take some questions here.
Yugandhar,
Yeah.
I still don't understand how the potential is measured scientifically, or how is potential measured and captured here?
Yeah. So potential is whether this person has the capability to perform in the next 6 months. Okay.
I know.
So, and how does that happen? If the person has the competencies, behavioral as well as skills, then typically it is understood. Not necessary always, but typically it is understood this person has the potential to do well. Now, skill is only ability. Translation into action is the job of the supervisor. The HR operation is to making sure that ability translates into action. So not necessary that competency assessment alone can be done. But yes, action is understood through behavior. So when you're doing behavioral skills assessment, you're able to understand whether the person is actually acting upon aspects. So for example, communication is an action. Okay. For example, negotiation is an action. So if these skills you have, very good. So that is why it's important that for every job family, the behavioral skills, technical skills, and functional skills have to be thought through very well. Okay. And if the person has been rated high on all 3, then this person is a high pot individual. If you have ensured that action, knowledge translating into action, is also captured in the behavioral skills part. Finally, I wanted to show you that we also need to understand what is the rating in the competencies, and which as an organization, as a unit, I should be able to view which are those competencies which are poor and how the distribution of those competency ratings is, and which are those people who need development in a particular competency. So this should be available to view by the supervisor and by the unit manager. Obviously, HR will look at it as an organization. If this case, for example, this unit, this if you see here, in this case, communication skills is the lowest competence, rated competency in our organization. This is not a good sign to have, because then we are not projecting ourselves well to the outside world. We don't project ourselves well to our own teams, and expectation setting is not at the best then if communication is not there. And also our check-ins are not good enough because our communication skills are poor. Our understanding of the challenges, our suggestions of the solutions, our coaching methods by employed by our team managers, all of them is at question. So therefore, this set of a thing, for example, if you saw this kind of an output, you have a problem at hand where the communication needs to be really upped at the organization. And you will also be able to see, for example, communication is clicked. You'll be able to see how the distribution is in different departments by putting filters. So if by putting, you'll know that which are the areas of focus, which are the departments of focus for improving communication, and which are those people. You also get the names of people, by the way, which are those people where the communication skills have to be really upped, and you can do a workshop, you can have coaching, you can have regular interactions, things like that, to ensure, or even some, so we have an LMS. So what you can do is you can just push some content on communication skills to these people, ask them to mandatorily go through them, take tests and stuff like that. Or you even can do a workshop where some training is done for 6 sessions, 10 sessions, followed up by another session. I mean, it's completely up to you all. How do you do that? But it is extremely important that you assess the competencies that are there as an organization, and make sure that the units are assessing the competencies and seeing which are the competencies lacking. If, for example, skills are lacking, technical skills are lacking, you have a major problem. So as a HR individual or a business leader, to have low score on technical skills is a sign of danger, because your output will be very, very poor. So therefore, this ideally should be done once in 6 months to analyze how the progress is done on technical skills and other skills, obviously. But as I told you, having technical skills as poor is a danger to the organization. Now, technical skills need not mean it's a factory or a particular a machine or things like that. A software guy has technical skills. A HR person has technical skills. Everybody has technical skills. So basically, for doing a particular job, beyond the behaviors that have to be done, do I know what are the strategies involved? For a HR professional, able to do the 9-box metrics is a technical skill, for example. Okay. For a HR professional to look at competencies, making sure assessment is done, and knowing what needs to be done after the competency framework assessment is done, is a technical skill. It is not a behavioral skill, mind you. Okay. Then for a manager who has an employee who basically speaks, does not communicate well, is rude, that is a behavioral skill. Okay. For a person who has low collaboration as a supervisor, is not able to get people together to do work, is a behavioral skill again, which is basically collaboration skill and leadership skills. So therefore, I'm just trying to make it clear what is the distinction between the different skills and what are the basic things that you need to be viewed at, looking at, and what your team managers need to be reviewing and how they are supposed to respond to each of them. Similarly, you have to have a similar graph that will be coming on unit wise and location wise on the ratings of the appraisal. So making sure that your appraisal ratings are not one department getting very high appraisal ratings coming and another department. So it's necessary that you balance it out Okay, if a department has performed extremely well, then it's fine. So it only has to be looked at first, then understood why it's justified for a department to have higher ratings compared to other departments.